So, the other day I was looking through Football Manager databases, as you do, and I came across what I think is the greatest database I've ever seen. It's the World Super League. When it takes me an hour to put a salary cap on some different leagues, I feel like I've done pretty well with myself. But Darth Furion has created this 908 club database across 37 divisions at 7 different levels of football. Honestly, it blows my mind what he's done with this. He has built a fully functioning, entirely new league system and format in the game, spread across all different continents. I mean, hats off to him. Round of applause, everyone. Round of applause. But obviously, this really piqued my interest, so I've downloaded it and I'm going to simulate into the future to see what would happen in this fictitious scenario of a World Super League. So as previously mentioned, there are 7 tiers in this system. Starting at the bottom with League 6, you move up to League 5, League 4, League 3, League 2, League 1, and the Premier League. In the Premier League, there is just one division, but at all these other levels, there are multiple divisions. So think about the non-league system in England or in Spain. I think the 3rd and 4th division, they have multiple different leagues at those levels. Basically, it's a wide system, not a deep system, which means that clubs only have to have 3 or 4 promotions to get to the top, as opposed to having to go through 15 or 20 promotions. As an example, the team that I support is Lincoln City. They're in the National League East, which is in the 6th tier of this league system. For them to get to Tier 1, the Premier League, they need to get promoted from League 5, League 4, League 3, League 2, and League 1, so only 5 promotions needed to get to the very top. From what I can understand, as a general rule, the leagues originally are all sorted basically on reputation. So in the Premier League, the top flight, it's all pretty much done on reputation. So you've got the best teams essentially in the world in this top flight. Jumping down to the 2nd tier, a lot of the clubs in the 2nd tier are from the top 5 leagues in Europe because just purely based on reputation, they're the highest reputation clubs. But there are some others thrown in here as well. For example, in the Championship, you've got clubs like Rangers. Moving to another division in the 2nd tier, there are quite a few Brazilian clubs at this level. Serie A, a different one, there's a lot more Eastern European clubs and Greek teams as well. So there's a whole mix of clubs at different levels, all fighting for promotion to that top flight. Using Lincoln City as an example again, what I do really like about this database is that it just puts you against random teams from around the world that your club would never normally play. Lincoln City would actually normally play against Gillingham and Bristol Rovers and potentially even Dundalk in a friendly, but they would never ever play against a team from Argentina. I think that's a great addition to this database, that there's just all these different clubs in there. And I also like the fact that we could play against the strongest, which is probably one of the greatest football names of all time, with a fantastic badge as well, based in Bolivia. So if you do want to download this database, I will leave a link down to the description. It's a fantastic database. I think you'd have a lot of fun playing with this as your local club, trying to work your way up the ranks. But right now, I'm going to go in the future to see what's going to happen. Right, 10 years into the future, at the end of the 2031 season, Arsenal are the team on top of the world right now. I mean, how disappointing is that? How disappointing is that? Leading the line for Arsenal, though, is Alexander Isak, who's been at the club for a long time after moving for £77 million to Arsenal from Real Sociedad, and has an insane scoring record for them. That's very impressive. But not quite as impressive as Erling Haaland, who's still at Dortmund in game and has actually stayed there on the grounds that he doesn't need to move clubs. Like, he's at the top flight in the world, scoring plenty of goals for one of the best clubs in the world. João Felix has felt the need to move to PSG, though. He wanted that extra bit of money, but it has worked out quite nicely for him. Look at these goal returns. So because this does attach on to the existing Premier League, all the old Premier League history is still there, but we're looking from 2021 and upwards. And as you can see, there have been multiple different winners. Man City, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Leipzig, that's a really interesting one, Inter Milan, Man City again, Bayern Munich twice, Madrid, and of course Arsenal most recently. What I do love about this is that PSG have not won one. I think that's pretty good. People think that I might not like PSG for the financial doping or the sports washing, but I just don't like PSG because they always steal my wonder kids. Please stop. But it is interesting to see that some South American clubs have made it into this top flight. They've not quite established themselves because Internacional have just been relegated on 23 points, quite far adrift of Atletico Madrid and Barcelona also getting relegated and Real Madrid too. The Spanish clubs have really had a difficult time here. Also find it fascinating that Real Madrid can go from title holders to nearly being relegated within 3 seasons, but we'll also take some time to go through the 2nd tier of football. I would go through every single league, but I don't think we've got an hour hour or two to spare for that, sadly. But in the second tier, you can see here that Chelsea have won it twice in a row, but not been promoted. Now, why is that? At this level of football, there are 6 divisions, but only 3 spots for promotion, as we saw 3 teams got relegated from the top flight. That means that all 6 winners of the leagues at this level have to go into a playoff system. And it's the winners of the playoffs that get promoted. And as you can see here, Chelsea lost to Lazio, but interestingly, LAFC also right up there. Without the restrictions of MLS salary caps, it looks like the MLS clubs can actually do pretty well. But I do like the variation here. You've got teams such as Chelsea and Tottenham down to clubs like Ipswich Town, Motherwell and Brann. In La Liga, clubs like Toronto and Houston Dynamo are in this division right now, which is really interesting. Some North American clubs, as we saw with LAFC, doing really well for themselves in this. Looking at Serie A, if we get the league table right up, Napoli and Roma have recently won quite a lot of these, and Fiorentina as well. But I do quite like how Beijing are in there. They're doing really well for themselves. Al Hilal, are they Saudi or Qatar? They are Saudi. They're doing pretty well for themselves in this top flight. Hajduk Split are right up there too. I just love how random and varied all of this is. In the Bundesliga one, Zenit won the title, but Ajax just behind them. You've got teams like Sparta Prague in there as well. Zilnia are in there as well. Rostock are right up there too. This is so interesting how varied it is. And I think you can have such a unique experience playing this state. I'm tempted to just play my own database and just go on like a 10-year run with Lincoln City, having a great time. In League you can see there's some really interesting different teams here as well. Anderlecht doing quite well for themselves. Mostar, they're from Bosnia, and they're doing really well for themselves. I love that these guys have really got themselves right up there. And finally, at this level in the Brasileiro Serie A, this is where LAFC won the title, 3 points ahead of Atlético Nacional from Colombia, I believe, and some really interesting teams in this division as well. So what I didn't realise actually, what I've kind of realised right now, is that they do appear to be localised to an extent. Like, this is Brasileiro Serie A, and there are a lot of South American and North American clubs in there. If we go, the other way and look at Ligue 1 in France again, a lot of French clubs are in there as well, which makes a lot of sense. I presume Ligue 1 is set to be based in France, so all the French clubs will be there. Now, there is a continental cup structure built into it using the Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League as the name. So if we look at the Champions League, for example, we can see that RB Leipzig are the most recent winners. Leipzig have done really, really well out of all of this, but it is dominated by European clubs. The Europa League, once again, also dominated by European clubs, but because it's so competitive to get into the Champions League, actually teams like Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Liverpool have been pushed into the Europa League and are winning it. I do feel sorry for Bayer Leverkusen though, runners up twice. In the Conference League though, this is where we're starting to see some other clubs, particularly South American clubs such as Vélez and Internacional, getting to the finals. Sadly not winning it, losing out to the likes of Wolverhampton Wanderers and Stuttgart, not teams you really want to lose to, but it's interesting to see all the different teams that are making up these competitions. It is worth pointing out that South American, North American, Asian clubs are allowed to be in the Champions League and the Europa League. They've just not got to finals. For this upcoming season, you can see that Internacional are in Group A. You can see that LAFC are right in there as well in Group D. So there's plenty of opportunities for these clubs to get in these competitions. It's just they've not gone on to win them yet. Potentially, if I had the time to go 100 years in the future of this, we'd see it. But because this is such a massive database, it takes an awful long time to simulate just one season, let alone 10 or 100. Now, what I've realised at this point of the experiment is that I've not got the in-game editor enabled. I forgot to do it at the start of this experiment. So we can't sort players by current ability, but we can sort them by transfer value, which gives us a rough indication of to who's pretty good. And surprisingly, not a lot of players have moved around all that much. Musiala still at Bayern Munich. We've got Bukayo Saka still at Arsenal. This guy, and I can't say his surname, has stayed at Sociedad his entire career. Other players like Gnotto have moved on from Zurich to Sassuolo. Yerim Pino's moved from, was it Seville he was at? Villarreal he was at, to Real Madrid. Thiago Thomas, he's gone to Vélez, which is quite an interesting move. Pedri's moved to Juventus away from Barcelona, but that's understandable given that Barcelona, we've not really seen great results from them. Šeško has gone to Schalke, but Gabriel Martinelli has stayed at Arsenal. But the moment we've all been waiting for, and that is, of course, how did Lincoln City get on? The team that I support. Well, I've found them. They're in the National League West. They came 6th, which is pretty decent, but they're still the 5th tier. No promotions.